Hello, Internet. Welcome to that Silverline show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, joined as always by Jose Fuentes.
Hi, everybody.
Ron Fortier. Brett Larson. And David Rios.
Hello.
Telling you, our Tuesday intro song, like music and whatnot, just makes me feel superhero-y. Makes me feel
I've got to get a recording of that and play it in my car.
Wake up in the morning, hop in the car, put that on.
Right up, Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Sunday stream makes it sound like you're about to join into like the Superman
Was that right?
universe. Yeah, it's pretty awesome too.
Nice.
We should shake it up and like have an Air Supply song start us out or something.
Yeah. Thank you, Pops. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll just start with like a little bit of Neil Diamond or something.
Oh my God.
Classic.
We're gonna start it. You guys are gonna like surprise me with some like Neil Diamond or Air Supply and whatnot, and I'm gonna be like,
I say that
I feel like I want to cry.
right?
we change it up and we have Leonard Nimoy's "Put a Little Love in Your Heart."
Yes, yeah. Well, pair that up with Brent Spiner doing Tiny Little Life Forms from
my sweet Christmas. Don't give Pops ideas, guys. We'll all hop on you with something.
You got to do Shatner doing Rocket Man, right?
Yeah.
Or we could have Nimoy doing Bilbo Baggins. That'd be fun.
Oh, my sweet Christmas.
Yes.
Well, we need to do Rocket Man when Brent has his next launch of Kayla's.
Right?
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah. Actually, well, we have Kalis, Beyond the Stars, and I just it's already been announced, but we got more art confirming. So, Soul Ascendant is also fast approaching. So. We have an array of sci-fi titles that all feature space travel.
I like sci-fi titles, by the way, for the record. Who doesn't?
Yes. I know. And I got I don't know if I ever sent it to you, but I had a few pitches in mind, Jose, that I think you might be interested in working on. But tonight's topic is going to be the cosmic realm of comics. So dealing with cosmic level characters, gods and deities, and all the fun abstractions that have been created and done throughout comics history that have, created unnecessary power scaling in some story arcs. But we'll get to that. But before we get into all of that, we do have something cool to talk about. And that is Crimson Nun Part 2.
Good job, Ron and team.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, Crimson Nun 2, the Kickstarter campaign was launched yesterday around noontime, and we actually met our goal within the first 24 hours.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane, okay? Yours truly is the writer. This is a character based on a spin-off character that Ben Dunnett created from his hit series Warrior Nun almost 30-some-odd years ago. And the artist on board, and you're seeing some of his sample art, is Jesse Thomas, who does the pencil inks and coloring. And our dear friend that all of us know, Mike Belcher's doing the lettering. The cover, which I found absolutely stunning, was donated to us by Jonathan McDaniel, who picked up issue number 1, liked it so much, he got a hold of me and said, hey, I'd love to do the cover for you guys. I said, hey, welcome on board. So here we are. We're funded, and as of tonight, we're at $350-something over goal. with another 22, days to get more backers, and basically print a heck of a lot more copies. So, hey, thanks for posting it, Tim. I really want to take the opportunity to thank anybody and everybody out there who supported us and made that happen so fast. It's most gratifying.
Yeah. And also, it's also the pricing here is something that I kind of talk about because we do. The entire show is meant to be educational for comic creators and especially those who are younger getting into the craft. But something I find kind of across all creative fields is maybe sometimes young creators get a little too upper on their britches, high on their own supply.
High on their own supply, yes.
And you'll see someone charging like $14 for a PDF that's 22 pages, like a single floppy, on some of these Kickstarters. And $5 for PDF, $10 for the PDF and physical. This is like the same price you'd get at your local comic shop, and it's from industry vets. Like, if you've read a comic at some point, you've probably read something by Ron Fortier. So,
right. Thanks. That's one of the things I've been thinking about most of the day as to how, rapidly this thing has all happened. And yeah, I look back on it. Ben Dunn set up the whole Kickstarter. This is his baby. Antarctic Press is going to be publishing the issue. And when he set it up, this is basically bare bones, guys. All right. The only two things offered on the campaign are a PDF for $5 and the hard copy for 10, or you can get both. And that's it. Okay. No other fancy, autograph, pages from the comic or keychains or T-shirts or any of that. All right. All we're basically offering here is hopefully a good comic book read. Yeah. And that seems to have struck a chord because, people are in this day and age when Kickstarter is flooded with so many projects. And I agree with you, Tim. I think some guys get way ahead of themselves on what they're doing. And, hey, look, like I said, my only goal in doing any of these projects is to write the best story I can write and to entertain the people who pick it up. And I owe them my career. So again, this has been a very, very happy day for this old man, let me tell you.
Yeah. I think it also kind of speaks to like Preston, for like all of our first experiences with comics was just like, it was the affordable entertainment that we found like on the corner rack that our parents were like, all right, go distract yourself. And we kind of get the same deal where, it's just, by today's standards, this is super affordable. This is the average cost, and it's done with the intention of entertaining you.
Right.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So hey, maybe that's a good sign for the future of independence. I certainly hope so.
I think so as well. Speaking of the independence and DD level things, and my comic run tomorrow. My jumping off point into cosmic level characters is we're going to go into the dark side of the cosmic first before we talk about everything else.
Tim has residence there, just so you guys know.
I did start out writing horror stories, so kind of. And Pops also mentioned that Thor was the reason he got in the comics, being the mythology nerd first. So we'll definitely touch on Thor and Loki and all that. But my first jump into comics and the cosmic level was dealing with a little guy by the name of Jackie Estacado. Image Comics, The Darkness #1 comes out tomorrow. And I am so stoked.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're relaunching it, and it's co-creator. It's the Jackie's co-creators writing it again, and so, speaking of, I'm going to kind of talk about one of my favorite spins on cosmic characters to get started. So when we talk about the cosmics, the deities, and all that, we have everything that's like kind of on the nose, right? We have characters like Thor, Loki, Khonshu and the Egyptian pantheon, and then also the more kind of named gods, Artemis and all that. Marvel and DC, can't touch them all. Indies playing this space a lot. and then you have the more abstract things where you get into things like, you know, the Beyonder, the Presence, the Living Tribunal,
The In-Betweener,
and
Master Order, Lord Chaos. Right.
Exactly. Depending on your interpretation, Mr. Mixel picks. But I've really liked how some of the indies have dealt with kind of the, in particular, Marvel DC does too, but not quite to the extent that characters like Jack Estacado in the Darkness, Spawn, kind of these characters who have taken dark pacts and then became heroes after that. And so, and they do it in a way where you have the divine manifest itself more physically, as opposed to, you know, when in Marvel Comics you see Eternity and it's kind of just this weird Starman sitting up in space. So I'll kind of touch first on bringing the gods down to Earth and dealing with kind of the street level type things, where you have characters like divine relics getting brought into stories. The classic MacGuffin, right? And so when you're talking about this level of influence, you have a lot of places to play with. So starting more street level, Ron, I know you said you had quite a few gods you had listed out in your pre-work as well. I feel like the street level gods are the ones that you kind of have more of the memory of, the more present ones of.
Well, yeah, I mean, let me go through this real quick, and then we, you know, any of you guys want to jump in and grab something here. But I mean, I'm first becoming aware of this concept of using mythology and gods in comics with, you know, the first ever Thor, all right, from Jack Kirby. And Kirby, you know, had a habit of playing with those mythologies, all right? So he gives us Thor, and through Thor, I'm a teenager reading this, I start discovering, you know, Odin and Loki and all the rest of them. All right, so continue along. The next godlike being that I remember, again, is still Stan Lee and Marvel, and that's the creation of Galacticus, who pops up and he devours worlds. Holy smokes, okay, that's no little villain, all right? All right, years go by, Marvel is still dishing out super beings, godlike beings, and we get Thanos, who, if he gets the 5 rings or 5 stones, he can create reality and twist it any way he wants. Okay, good. In the meantime, Kirby's gone over to DC, and what's he do with DC? Creates the new gods.
Yeah.
All right, another variation of his new mythology. So now we have Darkseid and his opposing number. And you know, Tim, you're right. Most of these are kind of on the really villainous side, but the extreme opposite is High Father of the new god. Okay, and then the last one. This one just caught me off guard because you're using the term street level. So what about a comic character who, like Don Blake in the original Thor, starts off in a comic series as a simple, run-of-the-mill, everyday human being who by the end of the series has godlike powers? Somebody like Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan.
In The Watchmen. All right? I mean, that character blew my mind. And I think it was the evolution of this whole idea of godlike beings in comics. And obviously one of my favorites, because it seemed like once he got these abilities and powers, he became almost an innocent in his perception of the cosmos around him, i.e., why should I do this or why should I do that? What's its relevance? Does it mean anything or whatever? I can remember the end of the Watchmen when Silk Spectre's trying to convince him to come back and save the Earth. And his like, well, why? And whatever. And I really give Alan Moore a lot of credit, because I mean, you're talking about a thematic moral issue that he ends up resolving, in that Dr. Manhattan finally realizes the value of humans is their ability to love.
Yeah.
And that's what changes everything. And man, that's a twist and a great, proclamation, if you will, that probably saves most of that story. But then that's Alan Moore, and I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, kind of the same thought where as I was saying it's street level, because in comics we're used to saying like street level, planetary level, cosmic level, right, or like street level, team up level, or whatever. We're talking about like storytelling. Where street level is kind of more like your issue to issue storytelling. You're not like saying this is part 1 of 4, part of a crossover, or whatever. And which is still weird to think about, that you have characters like Mr. Miracle or Dr. Manhattan or characters like the Phoenix Force, where they exist as like kind of this like grand concept or like this insanely powerful thing, but then their issues are going to be contained, and this is just issue number 262 of X-Men, right? Absolutely, all those characters do a really good job of, and I think what the Cosmic allows you to do, because you are creating this grand power fantasy, right? And it can kind of get lost in all of that. But because you're creating this high juxtaposition, it gives you really good space to start exploring elements of humanity within that, like you're saying, Ron. And that was one of the things that I did not like most of Thor: Blood and Love and Thunder. But the end of it, where you have oh shoot, what's his name? But the God Killer. Gore. Thank you. Wait, I think it was Christian Bale.
Right, Batman.
Yeah, exactly. When you have Christian Bale playing Christian Bale,
the Machinist.
Yeah. When you have Gore appealing to eternity, being like, I've killed all these gods to meet you, and all I want is for you to take care of my kid. And that's, it turns like, all right, you're gonna die, and I'm not going to say anything in judgment, but your love for your kid will transcend. And I think that is kind of like, when done very well, that's what the Cosmic allows you to deal with, is these very true moments. Whereas I kind of joked about it earlier, I think when it's handled improperly, when it gets to be just power scaling for its own sake, where you have certain storylines where it's just Celestials fighting gods, fighting the Tribunal, fighting the one above all, it just kind of gets lost in the sauce of, we just wanted to have a lot of cool gods doing stuff on the panel.
I just want to put it out there that even Thanos did it for love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about the movie, I'm talking about the comics.
Yeah.
Because we're going to wipe out a ton of people just to impress my girlfriend.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And that was also one of the things where movie Thanos, they made him differently. But they also kind of had this really interesting moment where they explain it. I feel like you get it more on the rewatches, maybe not so much if you just watch that saga one time through, but where he's talking about, he's trying to achieve balance so that way that the future has a chance of living on after he sees the destruction of his planet. And you also then get the idea of he's a terrible father, but he is still a father that has gone through and adopted these war orphans and done his best to make sure they have a chance of surviving through brutal torture and mutilation.
Augmentation.
First augmentation. But he's like, well, no, I've adopted these kids and the universe is dying, so I need to balance things so then life can continue and my kids will continue on. It's this very weird, like I talked about before, about the difference between like a hero and a villain is oftentimes the methods they take to reach the end that they feel is just. And I'm not a dad here, but I'm sure the dads on the panel would agree that like you try to do everything you can to make sure your kids have a good life.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things about Thanos, and more so in the film, I think, than in the comics, one of the things that I always had a hard time wrapping my head around was the concept that once he had all the gems, he controlled reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so create a new universe and make it all happy, marry sunshine and go and live it off. All right. I mean, if you can't do that, then apparently your advertising claim of I'm the master here, I create reality. Yeah. Obviously you don't, because you have limits. Now, it nullifies the whole storyline as far as the films are concerned.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to kill anybody. He didn't have to fight anybody. He just get the gems and just create a brand new universe where everybody's happy and nobody fights and he has no enemies, and it's pretty much Thanos heaven. Here we come.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
but hey, let's not think about that. We'll watch some logic as we're watching the film, because the good guys have to fight somebody.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a point where then you get to point like, well, why didn't he just, create infinite resources or create it so like. Well, thing exactly. Because it's that villainous perversion where they're stuck in this mindset, stuck in this dogma of like, well, no, this is the only way I know how to balance things is to kill, so that's the way I have to proceed. And then it's kind of the same thing of why Jason Todd as Red Hood was a villain at first, was because like, well, no, I bring justice by killing people.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And
Jason Todd
was willing to listen to reason. Thanos is not. I do know he's not. But then you get kind of the flip side of that of the idea of like absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And perhaps that also is part of why movie Thanos proceeded to continue with his plan, is because like, well, I have his power, I have it immediately, it's easy, I can just go through, he doesn't need to think about it, he just snaps his fingers. Characters like the Sentry, right, who is in theory one of the strongest forces in the Marvel universe, because however he is tied to the Void, the representation of emptiness and absolute nothingness that's stuck inside of him. And so whenever the power comes out, it tries to pervert him in a similar way. And then you get into this interesting idea of, well, then as people, as mortals, right, when we're dealing with concepts of the cosmic or the divine, do we think that humans are capable of handling such power, or do we think that due to our nature we're going to get into Calvinism, guys, do we think that all the power is going to...
I'll take 3 Infinity Stones and I'll make things happen.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like idea, right? You like limited power, when there's constraints on it, you can still operate with. When you're given the chance of unlimited power, well, there's nothing holding you back. So what's to keep you from still being a good person? Bob, a Sentry, is kind of like an extreme parallel to that. Compare that to the guy from Great Lakes Avengers, the Door, where he has a limited amount of the Void, just enough that he can become himself a doorway.
The Great Lakes Avengers. Nice work, man.
They're so dumb.
If you've not heard Great Lakes Avengers, please just do it. But then that guy also ends up becoming a cosmic level character at some point down the line. But this idea of, this has been since biblical times, right? The human conundrum of, can we understand God? Can we understand divine power? If we're given divine power, are we able to contain it? Do we become monsters? Like, wasn't the promise of power what corrupted Adam and Eve in any way or whatever? So
yeah.
Lots of chains you can write with, and then you can do something as stupid as like, well, no, if you have limited power, you become a doorway, and that's, be fine with that.
Well, if you want to look at it a certain way, though, and this is really where comics kind of can explore some existential themes better than even movies can. It's the idea that any power makes you bigger than someone else and then gives you a whole new set of questions. Namely, what are you going to do with it? Because if you even have, I remember, what was it? You remember Rising Stars? Did you guys ever read that?
Yep.
Straczynski
Michael
series.
Straczynski.
He introduced a character who was very so limited in their she wasn't telepathic, she was telekinetic. She could only do very tiny movements, which she would then use to put a tiny brain clot in your brain and you instantly die. So it's almost like the idea being, yes, with great power comes great responsibility, but weirdly enough, with any power comes with great responsibility.
Right.
So the question is, what are you going to do? And that's where these cosmic level stories, when they're at their best, is when they're still asking these questions.
Yeah.
Namely, why can't I just do whatever I want if I have a ton of power? And why should I adhere to anyone's idea of morality? Why can't I just make up my own? Why are people trying to stop me? And what are they basing their desire to stop me on? Sounds like their own ideas of morality. Whose is right? Whose is wrong? When you're talking about the biblical, Adam and Eve, I mean, the entire story of the Bible is mankind's desire to be God themselves, to be their own gods. So the idea of, well, what if you actually had godlike power? It only sharpens the question: can I really be God now? And if I'm not one of those people, am I going to worship them in the hopes that they will do what I ask and help me out of a jam? Or basically, whenever someone yells, "Help me, Superman," that's essentially a prayer. Have you ever thought of it that way? And and Superman then has the, we're lucky I guess he grew up in Kansas, or otherwise he would be like, I don't know if I want to help you.
How much you got?
Yeah, I owe you nothing. Remember there was that line in Man of Steel. Was it Man of Steel or was it Justice League, where Superman's mom says, "Help them or don't. You don't owe these people anything." Like what a sea change from the way it used to be. It was Superman helped people because he did owe it to them. Weirdly enough, he had the power. He should help. And now we're saying, says who? And it's a reasonable question, which comics can really explore answers to that in a way that movies really can't. They can take a stab at it, but they only got 2 hours, and they also have to do some fun stuff, or else it's going to be a Terrence Malick movie. And he has his fans, but they're not legion. So,
I think as writers, all right, when you approach a concept like that, you inherently realize the impossibility of it, i.e., you can't create a Superman figure without eventually coming up with kryptonite. You have to. Okay? Why? Because if you create an all-powerful cosmic being that has absolutely no weakness at all as a comic book series, then things are going to get boring really quick. Because I don't want to buy a comic book about a god, okay, who I might not like, might not agree with, but who does whatever he wants with no consequences whatsoever, because he's the all-powerful. And issue 2, we're back, he's doing it again. And issue 3, he's doing it again. And no, we can't identify with that kind of power. We can't. All right, we can look at the physical world around us and see that everything in this world has an Achilles heel. Everything in this world can be defeated. So let's write about characters and even cosmic beings, but we're going to give them some kind of kryptonite. Otherwise, we can't. There's no way you can identify with the character. It doesn't make any logic at all.
Yeah. Well, that was also one of the things that kind of hitting that on that, and then also like inverting what Brent was talking about, mankind desiring to be God. You get characters like Sandman, Morpheus, where he was born more or less omnipotent, but because of that, he doesn't understand humans, so he spends a lot of his time trying to understand humans better, and that's how we get the whole giving his friend eternal life thing, and be like, really? This is, you're okay with this? Like, you're not bored? But then also you get the idea of he's a hamstrung god, because in the first arc, right, he's trying to get back his relics and his artifacts to regain his power, and then we're assuming that when he gets that, he'll right all the wrongs and do everything because he is the omnipotent god of dreams. And then when he gets it, he doesn't. And even characters in the story like, well, why aren't you, killing these people because you can? Why aren't you making this person in the world because you can? And he says, it's not my place. I do the domain of dreams, so I'm going to fix this while inhabiting my domain. And more or less is playing by his own set of rules, which makes him relatable in that way, because not only do we have our own idea of like the rules that we have to abide by in life, but also our own kind of moral compasses of, well, yeah, if I wanted to, I could drive my car through this office door and that'll make them take my appointment, but that's not the way I'm supposed to do things.
Not with that attitude, isn't it?
Characters I found fascinating in and of itself, in that when Stan Lee created them, again, dealing with cosmic level, creatures, he basically made them 100% neutral. And that was the Watchers.
Yeah.
All right. Because they fascinated me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, supposedly they were gods in and of themselves, eternal and whatever, who would never get involved with, what they saw as, way below their interests or thought or whatever. And the fun of their being was their ability to see timelines. And I think one of the best Marvel animated series they ever did was that What If series of comics, then they adapted into animation. Those things were brilliant, i.e. taking known, characters that we grew up with and reading and spinning them on their head and going off, in different directions. And they had a Watcher who was like, the host, basically bringing into you, what if Doctor Strange had been like this or whatever. And that was some of the best writing I think ever done on Marvel characters.
Yeah.
It was because they weren't limited to just, we have to stay within this canon of this character.
Right, exactly.
Like, because this was done, like, we can go off the rails.
Yeah.
Too wild, yeah.
Well, I'll be honest, like, out of all the Marvel books, and I don't collect any right now, but I used to, and out of all of them, What If was the book that I always look for. Like, is the next one out? Is the next one out? Because I want that crazy, like, off the wall story. Even stories of cosmic beings or whatnot being messed up. There was one that had, what if Galactus became Elvis?
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds real wonky, right? The idea of like, they beat Galactus and they turned him into Elvis. He landed in like Kentucky or whatever. It was like the re-emergence of Elvis and whatnot. And one of the things that showed, like, because of that turning him into a human and whatnot, he decided he liked it, right? Not just the fame of Elvis, but I'm not, because the lady that found him, the human that found him, was like, oh yeah, like you died on a toilet and blah blah blah. He's like, I'm not going to make those mistakes again, right? So it shows him choosing when Adam Warlock came back, just like, hey, like Lord Galactus, like I can restore you back. He's like, no, I'm good. And then he goes on stage, starts playing like, the return of Elvis and whatnot. And it shows him like holding his guitar out and whatnot. And the shadow behind him across the stage was the shadow silhouette of Galactus. It's just like the idea of like just being just crazy off the wall comic, which I thought was great. And the series was the TV series was just as freaking cool, I thought.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, it was wild. You can take those cosmic, entities that are fit within a rigid line, you know what I mean, in the Marvel universe, and just freaking throw them to the wind and see what happens. And I just thought that was super awesome.
No.
What's kind of interesting about cosmic characters, at least, and I'll admit, I probably don't lean a lot into cosmic type stories, but it occurs to me that a lot of cosmic beings are defined by their limitations.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then you basically have what Ron was talking about. You have Superman doing everything, or One Punch Man taking out everybody and going, man, I'm bored. And that's bad if you're reading a character who's bored. So you have Galactus, who's defined by his hunger, and you have Dr. Manhattan, who is defined by his disillusionment with humanity.
Well, he's almost done in by his ennui at the end. He just, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because both of those characters still retain an element of humanity that is really compelling.
Right.
And I'd almost say if they didn't have those limitations, they wouldn't be nearly as compelling as we would need them to be in order to read their stories.
Yeah.
So you have Galactus's hunger, and frankly, the horror that he feels as he's destroying billions of lives, knowing that if he doesn't, he will just continue to hunger and even worse things will happen. Or you have Dr. Manhattan, who is, and what's funny is Alan Moore, I don't know a lot of his background, but I'm pretty sure he's not coming from a Judeo-Christian point of view. But what's interesting is he is still removed enough from the question to actually ask it. Why? Like he actually says in Watchmen, do you remember that some of the ancillary material that was packaged with the book where when he first pops up on the scene, someone was quoted as saying, there's man and there's Superman, and he's the guy. But that was a misquote, because what they actually said was there's man and there's God. Like Dr. Manhattan was God in the series. And suddenly God is saying things like, let's just go win Vietnam. But, seriously, I don't know if I care either way. And then later on, he's, when he goes to Mars and he's just watching everything going, why do people keep thinking that I should intervene? I don't know if I care enough to do so, which is a great question when thinking about our questions about the actual God. Why should God care about us?
Well, and what Manhattan comes to the conclusion of, as you recall, which is a mind-boggling scene in and of itself, is when he basically says, I am going to do what you ask. And Silk Spectre is pretty much stunned that he's going to acquiesce. And when she asks him why, he goes into this monologue, which basically says, of all the molecules in the universe, all right, of every single molecule, the bazillion out there in the known universe and whatever, for them to align, to go through time and space and become what you are, he is eventually falling in love with life and seeing it this great beauty that it is. And that's what captivates his motivation in the end. Because if that can exist in the universe, then obviously there is a greater purpose, reason, or whatever. But it's enough to make him want to participate.
Yeah.
And to the end where he comes down, and we get that second climax where Ozymandias has already destroyed half of New York, right? Blah, blah, blah. And Manhattan allows him to do it for the greater good. And suddenly you have a God who's emotionally involved. And again, maybe that's a great part of who he was as a human scientist in the beginning, that he finds again.
Yeah. Kind of one of the things that I find really fascinating with these kind of stories is dealing with, to quote more metaphysical concepts, the idea of the clockwork God versus the compassionate God versus the Gnostic God, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of you might have a compassionate God or was it the learning toddler or something like that, but the idea of the infant God where it's this all-powerful being learning their own morality or the same things that creates characters like Dr. Manhattan, or even like characters like Thor, who throughout their arc you see them become less foolhardy and less boisterous and more compassionate for what they care about, to the point where in the current canon, Thor has sacrificed himself to the serpent to lose his godhood to end the cycle of Ragnarok because he can't see Asgard destroyed again. Versus the Clockwork God, where you have someone like Morpheus or the Living Tribunal, where there's this deific being that has, either because of like the rules in the lattice work of the cosmos, or they imposed on themselves, they have this set of rules where like, no, I can't intervene unless it meets the set criteria. Where like the Living Tribunal couldn't interfere with Galactus or Thanos, because when they were petitioned, like, well, no, the tools for justice are still available to you, therefore this is not my domain, I cannot interfere in this. And then speaking of collecting Marvel things and Thanos, the current run of Marvel Zombies, which is dealing with the idea of a Gnostic God, where there is a divine being out there that has sat in judgment, found us guilty, and hates us as we are currently. And,
well, thanks
and then
for
sends,
nothing.
yeah, and then sends the zombie virus as its judgment and damnation.
Who writes that?
This one is, I believe it's actually a newer group. Someone Parker. Sorry, third page. It's Ethan Parker and then Griffin Sheridan. Griffin Sheridan's been writing for a little bit, but I'm not familiar with Ethan Parker, but I am quite enjoying it so far, especially some of the covers. So, yeah.
Okay.
But the idea of, doing something like an Elseworld story or a what if, or like a weird like side canon where you can entertain these questions of, okay, what if there's a cosmic being that saw these heroes like, okay, you guys have clearly failed. Humanity has lived in hate for too long. Here's your damnation. It is zombies.
Well, I mean, it's weird because stories like that really do make you wonder about the nature of God, which is a really compelling question that everyone has to wrestle with on some level.
I hope so.
But those questions
I hope so, because I have a hard time dealing with people who don't. Right? I mean, can you go through this entire life clueless and just think it's all here by accident, no big deal? Come on, okay? What we're wrestling with and skirting here is that I think each of us, going to what you're saying, Brent, eventually are going to ask that question. Maybe we're going to ask it a lot more than once through life. I know I have, constantly, all right? It's an ever-evolving part of my life and the answers that I'm finding for myself, all right, to the point where it becomes a really deep and, I guess, blessing to my life that I've asked those questions, that I've done my own soul searching, if you will, and come to a conclusion. A quote I heard recently, and it ties in with this whole idea of what we're talking about. I do believe there's a God, but I love Thomas Aquinas's concept. Thomas Aquinas said, and if you listen carefully, he said, God is.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. God is. And we simply, all of us here, our loved ones, our friends, everybody else, exist in him. It's not like he's a part of us. He's not, in the universe, everything, all of it exists in God. God is. That's it. He is.
Yeah. The nature of God is something everyone has to struggle with. Whether they make a choice not to believe in it or make a choice as to whether he's real or not, if whatever conclusion you reach, you cannot just stay in a static place as like it's a fact.
Right.
You have to then order your life around whatever conclusion you reach. Yeah. And going back to the comic angle, I appreciate when writers actually take cosmic storylines and use it to unearth more of the question of that one question: is there a God? What's the nature of this God? What you were talking about, Tim, is interesting. I mean, a God that is almost that wants to curse humanity and does not have humanity's best interest in mind.
That was that was an ancient Hermetic tradition. Ancient, but I think it came out of late classicalism, got defined in the medieval ages, and then kind of got redistributed in the Renaissance. So they have Gnosticism, where there had some like Judeo-Christian scholars looked at the state of the fall of the Roman Empire and all this other stuff, and are like, okay, well, this is Armageddon. We live in the apocalypse, and nothing has happened. Therefore, we have all been damned to die in this. And then as the nature of humanity is, we constantly interpret and reinterpret our own interpretations until it develops further on until Thanos.
Right. Which is really interesting if you look at it from a really 50,000 foot view, which is stories about the divine and what the nature of it is. Also, you can't help but tell that kind of story while also trying to understand what the nature of humanity is. They're in direct juxtaposition with each other. And to be able to really get down to the nature of what is good and evil, what is the nature of power, what is the nature of limitation, why is love so great, should evil be punished? I mean, these are genuine storylines that are reflected in a cosmic story, but they're ones that are worth asking. In a way that humanity has had to struggle with since there's been a humanity. So in a weird way, cosmic storylines are probably as high-minded in terms of pursuing what it means to be good, what's the nature of God. It does it better probably than any other story or genre you could think of, I imagine. When it's done well.
And then not to self-promote, but we're all kind of here for that, but talking about the storyline that I'm working on, but in Soul Ascendant, where it's just a sci-fi story where I blend science fiction and Roman mythology, it's this cosmic level by nature, and dealing with I try to hit it from each actual god falls into some level of the different philosophical interpretations. where you have the Ascendants, which are the mortals chosen by God, championed, and all stuff. Very classic mythological idea of the chosen of God, the championed. But then you have, in the first issue, you have characters like Sol, the sun god, who is the idea of the I can't remember what the name of the sort of classic Catholic Lutheran idea, what that philosophical was, where it's the benevolent cares and wants to do what's best, but will cause miracles, but will not directly intervene. Right. And then you have a character like Terra, who is the drowned god. Jove or Jupiter is kind of the blind watchmaker. And then Pluto or Orcus is the Gnostic. And so trying to hit in on like all these different interpretations and what happened if you were actually like, sit them down in the same solar system. But when you're dealing with these stories, when I found writing it's this really like personally subscribed to kind of an idea of perennial philosophy, which I found ended up reflecting itself very deeply in this because but when you're writing these comic stories, if you're doing it right, I think that like when they come from messages, when you are asking these questions of yourself and then using your art to achieve some level of catharsis with these questions.
Yeah. But then you have to be careful, because if you're too much like, and then they got they prayed and then got exactly what they wanted, and then everybody was happy, and you're like, yeah, for some reason, the Deus Ex Machina thing is real, even if you don't see the god come, down from the skylight on cables to just pluck you out of your problems.
Well,
so
then at that point, you saw your script the TBS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but we have like the writers have kind of been talking about a lot about this, which
I mean, there's no way you are going to write anything in this world that isn't in some way or another going to reflect your personal beliefs, obviously. And I think the thing you always want to avoid, all right, is jumping up on the soapbox and starting to preach. All right, because again, I think there's the basic stories of mankind. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was the writer Tennessee Williams, when he received his Nobel Prize. One of the interviewers asked him something about, well, you write about all these poor, downtrodden, sudden people. Why is that? And why aren't you writing about, the rich living in Manhattan or the Hollywood types in Hollywood or whatever? And Williams' answer, I think, was rather profound. He goes, none of that changes. The truths of the heart remain the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to explore. We try to explore the truths of the heart.
Yeah.
All of us are struggling through this world, and hey, I don't believe you can have love without suffering. I don't think you can suffer without love.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of what happens when you get multiple writers in a room and then bring up philosophical topics as we start waxing philosophically.
Yeah,
but for Jose and David, when we talk about the illustration of cosmic or deific level characters, with what little time we have left, obviously you have characters where when they present themselves as more mortal characters like Thor or Jacques Staccato or Spawn, where they are more or less deific or semi-deific, presented in a mortal form. They have kind of more relatable silhouettes. Like they'll have maybe some outlandish elements, things like that. But then you also get characters like the Living Tribunal or Eternity or the Presence, which you can kind of very strange abstract ideas. So you make them very strange abstract visuals. Can you guys kind of talk about, as an inker, illustrator, colorist, what are some thoughts you have when you're tasked with dealing with cosmic level characters, and what are some thoughts you have? What are some questions you ask of yourself and of what you're creating? And
all the cosmic looking characters have to look like me. Because I'm a cosmic character and I'm the god, evidently the god of what I draw. Just checking to make sure I can get struck by lightning.
yeah.
If I were to draw, like, I like more down to earth characters, right? So, like, I like Batman, I like Clayface. I not really like Batman, but I like Clayface, and you know what I mean. More, you mentioned street level. You know, not that cosmic characters are street level, but I definitely like prefer street level characters. But I think the best silhouetted cosmic characters, cosmic deities, were the new gods. Like almost every single one of them was different, and if you were to see their silhouette, you would know who they were. You know who, you know what I mean. You know who Light Ray is. You know who Orion was. You know what I mean. You know who Highfather was. You know who Metron was. You know what I mean. You know what they look like because each of their silhouette is different because of whatever thing that they had. Of course, Metron would just look like a chair, the back of a chair, but whatever. He'd have to be a profile. I like that concept. Like if I were to I would be drawing godlike characters in a setting such as that, I would definitely pull influence from the new gods. You know what I mean? Some of Marvel ones are okay and they're different. You know, like you said, I don't know all of them. But there's Galactus. Like Brett, name off the godly people from Marvel. You just did earlier.
Oh, geez. Oh, the In-Betweener, Lord Master Order and Lord Chaos.
Yeah, Lord Chaos was literally one of those gross-looking, ugly face ball things.
Right.
Eternity.
Eternity, yeah.
Was the Beyonder?
The Beyonder, Infinity.
But those didn't seem very.
Yeah, he was different. He was like
appealing to me, right? They
right.
just. If you did a silhouette of all of them, other than the Madball ones, they would all look the same to me.
Yeah.
The Living Tribunal. Galactus is always mentioned in there.
Yeah.
Yes. I just Googled
Thanos.
it.
I don't think Thanos counts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Celestials too because they're very classic interpretations of the Clockwork God, quite literally.
Yeah, absolutely. Celestials are interesting, but yeah, artistically, I want something that's going to have a nice silhouette, regardless. Like if it's a big bulky god, if it's a little god, if it's whatever. You know what I mean? I want my silhouette to represent what the character looks like, and for people to recognize it because, say, you do Greek gods or Roman gods, you know what I mean? You get Artemis and Ares, and you're going to want to draw them to look like themselves, but you want their silhouette to look like it. You know what I mean? You want Artemis, you're going to want to see her silhouette with a bow. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Ares, you want war and anger and just hate around him. Like you take those things into consideration when you draw. I mean, even if you're creating new gods, like I mean, not just the new gods, but like that was an interesting take. You know what I mean, on different, not necessarily themed. Like the pantheons of like ancient world or whatnot were all themed on something. You know what I mean? Demeter was about booze and whatnot, and Hera was about harvest and fertility, and just they were all themed. You know what I mean? The new gods, I don't feel that they were themed. They were just new gods. You know what I mean? They all had their quirks and whatnot, but artistically, I just thought they were fantastic. And so I would pull I would pull my my references from something like that. My inspiration from more like that tone as opposed to, you know what I mean, what Marvel did.
Me and I'm kind of I want to look at this situation. I mean, if you wanted to have this whole this whole thing of the god coming in, yeah, I see the pictures of pictures in my mind of Galactus showing up and he's bigger than life and he's huge and all this stuff. But on the flip, I also like a lot of subtlety in things. So like if I'm thinking in terms of like illustration, um, if you turn around and think things like Mephisto type characters where maybe they're hiding in a human form or something like that, and you can subtly do things to kind of promote them. I like the idea of mystery of like, you come in and you see here's you know, like somebody gets brought in front of this person and this person is just sitting on kind of a stone chair or whatever, and the subtleties of like this kind of omnipotent light shining down on them to give you the idea that hey, this is somebody big. This is not your normal person. There's something going on, and a lot of the subtleties of things like that I like. When I was thinking of characters for this, I actually kind of branched off and doesn't really go into a cosmic. It's more of a mythical thing. But one of the ones that came to mind to me was and Jose's gonna go of course. Just thinking of the original Mage book and the Umber Sprite. Umber Sprite, he's more of a magical entity and all this, and he's bringing, you know, ogres and stuff like this across, and to do he's the big bad, right? And he's bringing these into our reality. But I think what was interesting, and went back to some of the conversations that we went, is what makes these characters more fallible. And one of the things is, as we saw in the original Mage, was the Umber Sprite was so focused on his goal, to kill the Fisher King, and he must be found, that his whole time he just basically just got larger and larger and more corrupt with his power, that he started to get, he was physically getting to his human form. He was very bloated and he was, distorted and all this stuff. And, it was, to me, it was things like that where, ultimately, I won't go because I know Jose wants to read it, but his downfall is, it's a very pretty much almost human thing that brings this mythological person. And I like the idea of whether it be gods or magical entities or whatever, where they create their own downfall. And like I said, with the Umber Sprite, it was just he was focusing on one particular goal. This had to be done. This had to be done. This had to be done. Find the Fisher King. Find the Fisher King. And that just allowed him to be blindsided by things around him. And I think when you look at some of those interesting characters, it's, you know, when you start seeing characters that design their own downfall. So that was kind of, you know, what I was originally thinking. But I'm, like I said, I'm more into the subtle. And if you look at the images in the book of the Umbra Sprite, he is not like this glorious thing. He's just hidden in human form, and he's like, looks like a businessman, you know, and stuff like that. So it all depends on what your character is that you're doing. Are they meant to be somebody that is in your face? And, you know, think about Galactus. There's this big, huge pink guy. You know, he's bright pink and he's out there, you know. But then you have on the other side, you have Eternity, and, you know, and he's kind of the absent. He's, you know, he's dark and he's, you know, so I won't even go into the Living Tribunal. Kind of weird for me. I never really got into that aspect of it. But it's all about your intention on what you want to do. And, you know, to Ron's point, you can't make somebody, you know, supremely powerful. I mean, think of Star Wars. Star Wars starts up. Stormtrooper comes up. We found the Death Star plans. The end. It's done. Why even go any farther, you know? So part of the interesting thing that makes these characters interesting is the journey that they go through and the loopholes that they put in and how they can go. And like Superman and Mr. Mixelplix is, you know, just the whole thing of getting him, you know, tricking him and just saying his name backwards and all that. That's part of the journey. And if you had a good solid villain, visually, yeah, you can have him come up and go, "Oh, I'm here and I'm gonna crush the world," you know, you're big bad. But I think that, to me, while that's an interesting thing, you turn around and you look at people like Loki and things who like to dig down in the deep and get into it. That, for me, makes kind of a far more interesting character. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for having this very philosophical conversation.
Sorry for running over.
No, we're all good. I want to grab everyone's input before I end for the night. We will be back next week with a topic that is on the calendar that is loading right now. And that topic is, yes, perfect. The best Santa features in comics. So we'll be talking about our favorite appearances of Santa in comics. So we'll be like, make sure to check out Wednesday Wham and Silver Sunday, and head on over to Kickstarter, where you can pick up Crimson Nun Part 2.
Yeah,
This guy right here.
It's already funded, people.
Yeah,
It's a done deal.
Always happening.
Keep picking it up.
exactly. But we'll be back next week, and until that time,
Make mine.
Hey everyone, this is Jose Marzan Jr., anchor for Marvel and DC, and make mine Silverline.